There is so much good about our culture. We are an essentially optimistic people. We resist fatalism. We believe that anything can be fixed. Anything can be fixed. The flip side of that, though, is we'll fix it if we can just figure out who screwed it up. Right? If we can find out who made the mistake, or what failure of government organization, or lack of what agency caused this to happen, we can be safe. Because if the attack was somebody's fault, we can be safe. If we just get the right guy, if we just get the right gal, if we just get the right structure. But of course, you know, not to ruin your day, but you know we can't be safe. We can be safer. But in this great country, we simply can't be safe. Things will happen. All the blaming in the world will not guarantee us protection, will not necessarily make us safer. What it will do is send powerful messages to the good men and women who are seated at that desk, having to decide between garbage and real. Send a message to them that the best way to protect yourself from the career-altering experience of testifying at a green felt table or appearing in a best-selling commission report is to resist the judgments about wheat and chaff, it's my third metaphor, wheat and chaff that are at the heart of all good counterterrorism and at the heart of all good law enforcement work. And I don't have an answer for you. I'm somebody who believes strongly we need to figure out what went wrong so that we can try to be better, especially in the wake of a devastating tragedy. We got to fix things. We got to improve things. Toyota is the best car company in the world because they celebrate mistakes, celebrate the reporting of mistakes, celebrate people raising their hands and saying, we screwed this up. And they do it because that's the way they find an opportunity to fix. Now, don't get me wrong. Toyota, and no other sensible entity, does not celebrate repeated mistakes. But they realize that the only way to avoid creating paralyzing incentives is to avoid blame and focus on improvement. And maybe Toyota is not a good comparison because the nature of the subject matter is so much more serious than making cars. Maybe it would be useful to look at the British and ask ourselves, how is it that the British suffered devastating subway attacks and bus attacks without the flagellation of a commission? How did that happen in their culture? What is different about their culture than ours? I know from dealing with them, they were incredibly focused, obsessed with improving, and yet there was none of the ritual affixing of blame that we seem to engage in. The only reason I tell you this is I hope when the next attack comes, and when good people and the people on the 9/11 Commission are all remarkable people, when remarkable people like that are asked to serve on the next commission, I guess I hope that they will remember, do their jobs, but remember the collateral effects that come from our laudable desire to figure out what went wrong. And if I could suggest one more piece of common ground, that it is not best for our public consideration that we drop issues like that into the middle of a presidential campaign, as we did in 2004, which led to a light-speed adoption of the Department of Homeland Security and the creation of the Director of National Intelligence, that a whole lot of people on all points of the political spectrum said, I wish I'd had more time to think that through. Well, there is no, to borrow from Justice Holmes, there is no, and distort him, there is no detached reflection in the face of an upraised presidential election. And let me close by offering one last piece of common ground, which is maybe the most important to me. And it's this. Some measure of doubt about all of these issues is a good thing. One of the most important lessons I learned in government, I knew it before government, but I learned it a lot in government, is that people are flawed and often wrong. I know I am. I think that's who we are. We all make mistakes. But the knowledge of that aspect of our nature, of our fallibility, is critical. Because here's something I learned for sure in government. People are at their most dangerous when they are certain their cause is just and certain their facts are right. Almost nothing can be known for certain or observed with perfect clarity. I was a geek chemistry major, and I remember Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. I was reminded of it when I recently read a great biography by Walter Isaacson of Albert Einstein. And Isaacson writes that Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, which is the notion that, and I hope there's no scientists here because I'll screw this up, but it is the notion that we cannot know the position of the most elemental particles in nature with precision, because by observing them, by the act of observing, we inevitably disturb them. And so we can't know where they were before we started looking. Now, according to Isaacson, that drove Einstein crazy because it was inconsistent with his view of the universe as essentially knowable. If we just do the work, we will know these answers. But as Isaacson also points out, later experiments proved, or at least we think they proved, that Heisenberg was right. However unsettling that notion of uncertainty might be to a physicist, it is the mark of wisdom in a public servant, I think. It is a strength when someone realizes the limitations of our ability to observe facts and the limitations of our ability to reason from those facts to decisions. Too often, though, in my experience in government, especially the higher you got, that recognition, that doubt was derided as squishiness, as lack of conviction, not solid. He's not solid. And using terms like that as an epithet is just wrong. Doubt is not weakness. Doubt is wisdom. Now, I should hasten to add, I'm not talking finger in the wind, I'm afraid to make a decision kind of doubt. Decisions have to be made. And unfortunately, the hardest ones have to be made the fastest and often on the most imperfect information. They got to be made. But the wisest people I ever worked for were the ones who made the decision, got to make it, but always made it with their mind open to the possibility that this could be wrong. And that somebody else might have the better view of it because that helped them get to healthy decisions. Learned Hand once said that the spirit of liberty is the spirit which is not too sure that it is right. The spirit of liberty is the spirit which seeks to understand the mind of other men and women. My experience in government showed that to be remarkable wisdom and remarkable insight. On September 11th, all of us, wherever you are in the political spectrum, and I really don't care, left, right, center, around the back, all of us looked to the sky and saw something of just almost unimaginable pain. When I became U.S. Attorney shortly after September 11th in New York, my office window looked out down, I don't know if you know New York, down Park Row, past City Hall, and there was a space where the Twin Towers used to be. And I'm a Bruce Springsteen fan, and whenever I would look at that, Bruce Springsteen has a song called Empty Sky, and I would think about that empty sky and what that represented. All of us, whether you've ever even been to New York, that empty sky looms large in the life of everybody, but especially Americans. All of us want to find a way to prevent that from happening again, from our fellow citizens feeling that kind of pain. As we make that effort, I hope that we will do all we can to foster an informed discussion of some of these issues and to focus with an open mind and without caricature and without bumper stickering on the use of government power and of the best ways to protect our fellow citizens. We must find a way to talk about these issues without trying to beat the other side, without the clever soundbite that demonizes and scores us some points. We should question our government. We should accept the good faith of those who may have a different view, and we should try our absolute best to stand on common ground as we protect this country. So thank you for your help.